Oh, the eternal question. What if? Yes, What If? Season 2. I have watched it. I debated whether or not I was going to do a review on it. I figure, what the heck. At this point, I've waited long enough since I saw it. I am going to need to consult a list for episodes, because if I try and go off the top of my head, I may not remember all of them. I consider just having that be the review. Like, whatever ones I don't think of, just assume that they're slightly more forgettable. But then again, I also have ADHD, so it can also run into a situation if I can't recall something in the moment, then look it up later and go, oh, right, that was actually good. So rather than risking that, I am going to keep a list handy. But quick overview first. I was not a huge fan of the first season. Couple of reasons. The first one was I hate this animation style. I just do. I just don't like it. It works decently for action, but when characters are just standing around talking, I just don't like this animation style. Like, that's just a fact that I have to deal with, and I knew that even going to the first season. The other reason I didn't really like the first season was most of the stories I didn't think were that interesting. A lot of them actually felt super obvious. Like the zombies one, yeah, that felt really obvious. The Doctor Strange one felt painfully obvious. There only were a couple that really felt like they went out of their way to really try something bonkers. And I also didn't like how it built to this grander story with this freaking version of Ultron thing. And I don't know why it was like, this is a bunch of Elseworld stories. Like, I know Elseworld is technically DC branded, but like, there's a bunch of individual standalone things. Why are you trying to build an Avengers out of this? Just tell the stories. So I didn't like the first season. I debated whether or not I was going to watch this one, but then I watched the first couple of episodes and found myself liking it more than I expected. So first of all, I don't know if it looks better than the last season. It might just be that I've gotten used to it. I still don't love this animation style, but like, I guess having had to suffer through it for a season, I'm just like, it's not worth, being annoyed about it anymore. Maybe that's just what it is. But I also feel like there were a lot of the concepts really pushed much more far out ideas than the first season did. It really feels like. And yeah, overall, I like this better. It does still build to like a climactic final episode, and the final episode is actually probably the one I like the least. I'll talk about that when I get there. But it did so a lot less ham-fistedly than the first season did. This worked better for me overall. So let's go through this. What if Nebula joined the Nova Corps? I mean, this one was pretty easy to guess what was going to happen, but this is kind of what I mean. Like, if this is your starting point, that's a pretty hefty departure for Nebula as a character, and put her in a completely different setting, give her different goals. I think that was an interesting way to do it. I mean, it was a solid enough start. Not much more to say than that. What if Peter Quill attacked? Yeah, that one leans even harder into like, that's the kind of out there ideas I really want to see this show pitching. Weirdly, a lot of people didn't like the Black Panther as Star-Lord one from the first season. I thought that was one of the better ones because it was a far out idea. So's this. I guess they kind of tend to do more out there ideas with the Guardians characters. Makes sense. They're more out there characters anyway. So what if Happy Hogan Saved Christmas? Like, it's Avengers Die Hard. It's exactly what it says on the tin. But you know what? It delivered what it set out to do. It was fun. It was silly. It knew exactly what it was. And it was in the spirit of the holidays in a way that I could see some people even adopting as a regular part of their holiday viewing schedule. I'm not sure that I will, but it was charming enough that I could see people doing that. What if Iron Man crashed into the Grandmaster? Again, just another wild idea. And it was just lovely to have Jeff Goldblum back, just hamming it up as the Grandmaster. That was a good time. And they have a surprisingly good impersonator of Robert Downey Jr. being Tony. It didn't stand out as being like, boy, that's not quite right. Like, no, that was pretty damn close, like impressively so. So that helped quite a bit. And I actually found, in an odd way, I like Korg better in this than I think I do in the movies. He fits this literal cartoon a little bit better than he does more than a few of his actual MCU film appearances. He works better here. What if Captain Carter fought the Hydra Stomper? This was one of the less interesting ones because it just pushed forward the Captain Carter story. And, you know, it's Peggy instead of Steve. Although they also make Steve into her Bucky rather than her Peggy, which is interesting because they also had Bucky kicking around, which, yeah, okay. Like it was decently executed for what it was, but it was one of those ideas that feels very by the numbers. That having been said, I do still like Haley Atwell in this part. I do still like Captain Carter. This definitely treated her a hell of a lot better than frickin' Multiverse of Madness did. Good grief. The more time that has passed, the more that movie really ticks me off. But overall, it just wasn't an exceptional story. It was well executed for what it was, but I would consider it middling within this season. What if Kahori reshaped the world? I liked this one a lot. Now, this is an original character, to my understanding. This was a new character created for this, and I think it worked. I thought it worked well. Like, I don't know how much research was done with indigenous folks. I know the actress. I think most of the actors are legitimately indigenous actors, which is good. But like the writing process, I'm not sure. But speaking as a white person, speaking as a white person who does their best, but also doesn't know a lot, it felt respectful, and it was just joyful, uplifting. That was the word I was trying to find. Uplifting, and I quite like Kahori as a character as well. I thought that did quite well. I know we're supposed to get a third season, so I actually kind of hope that they'll roll the dice on some other completely new concepts that just feel like they fit within at least an alternate version of Marvel and of the MCU, and just throw some completely new stuff at us. I hope that becomes a regular feature, actually. That feels like taking good advantage of what the format of this show even is. You can go so far out there as to take a concept that, yeah, this works just as an alternate Marvel Universe concept, but also, here's a whole new character we're doing it with. Why? Because we can. That should be the answer like 80% of the time for questions of why are you doing that when it comes to What If? The answer should just be because we can. I think that's just another thing that contributes to my liking this season as much as I did. And again, I don't want to oversell it. It's not like phenomenal. It's not like, oh, my new favorite MCU series. It's not as good as Loki. It's not as good as Hawkeye. It's not as good as Echo. But this second season is definitely an improvement. And I didn't come away nearly as frustrated as I was with the first season. What if Hela found the 10 rings? That was an interesting one. Giving Hela Thor's basically entire arc, the whole being cast out, having to, in her case, it's not even about being worthy, it's about showing mercy. That was a nice little twist on it too. And also, Cate Blanchett, I'm here for it. And that's just a fun mashup of settings, Hela with the 10 rings and everything going on there. Yeah, that was very much a let's just take two things and smash them together, but they smashed together into an interesting shape. What can I tell you? Yes. What if the Avengers assembled in 1602? Now, in a lot of ways, this one is kind of the setup for the finale because it's establishing, the tears and all this stuff, but it's still very much having fun with the actual story to tell. We have the one person who is out of place, which is Peggy. I like that Peggy just calls out the Watcher and be like, are you going to keep narrating behind my back? He's like, you can hear me? And she goes, yeah, sometimes. And that doesn't really get fully explained or explored And I actually love that. I just like that moment. But while I think they crammed a few too many kind of what feel like obvious, I wish they'd kind of gone a little bit more off the beaten path with some of the characters that they had show up. Like Ant-Man felt out of place. Maybe I'm weird. Like, which is really weird because he's part of Robin Hood's Merry Men, and Scott Lang is actually a thief. So it's weird to me that he felt out of place, but he kind of did. But at the same time, like having Robin Hood and having Happy Hogan of all people be Guy Gisborne, effectively, and like that was fun. The whole thing, it embraced the absurdity of its own setting. And like, here's all these things and this power and this technology, this magic in the 1600s. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's have fun with this. But then, of course, that leads us into the finale, which is the weakest thing, largely because it's mostly just a protracted action scene. And oh, look, evil Doctor Strange is back. And the twist is, he's still evil. The fact that they tried to play that off as a twist is really weird to me. Because they basically have him show up and like the narrative tries to be like, he learned his lesson because he lost everything. And I'm like, did he though? And then it turns out, no, he didn't. And I was so shocked. So this is my shocked face. It's just this long extended action scene with Captain Carter and Kahori versus him. And like, it's a decently done extended action scene, but so was the one against Ultron in the first season, but I still got bored because it's the extended action scene. Okay. But it didn't bother me nearly as much because it still felt slightly more organic coming out of at least the previous episode, whereas the Ultron thing felt a lot more shoehorned into me. Again, that may or may not actually be the case. It may just be that, again, I now understand what this show does. And so when it did it this time, I was not as annoyed because I knew it was at least a possibility because the first season did that. So maybe I was just prepped and cushioned for the likelihood of this happening. So while I don't like it, it doesn't annoy me as much because I'm not as let down because I knew this might happen. But overall, yeah, I had a surprisingly fun time with this. Surprising for me, given how I'm kind of tiring of a lot of the MCU stuff. Some of it I still haven't seen. I still haven't seen the Marvels. When does that hit Disney Plus? Do we know that? The last video I put up on the break room also ended with me checking something on my phone. Marvels, Disney Plus. Expected in February. Okay, so I got a little while on that. But this, I'll tell you that this was enough fun that I'm excited's too strong a word, but I'm cautiously optimistic about a third season, which I wasn't about the first season, and I really wasn't about this one, but it feels like they are better utilizing the breadth of creativity that this format allows. They're doing more unexpected things. They're doing more just lean into silliness. They're doing more outlandish stuff and less predictable. Like, yep, that played out exactly as I would have expected that to play out, which happened too often in the first season. So it's on an upward trajectory. That's nice. What if season 2? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills. Enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe are a big help. Other things I do, there are links in the description. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here. So you can just come on back next time you need a break. Drum roll for my highest supporting patrons. Robin Moore, Ruben Lafula, Goddess Elida, Oliver B., Turok, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Gozer the Gozerian, Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Geek Filter, Melinda Walters, Toby Jackson, Jen, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Fernambi Likes the Poodle, Robin Powell, T Love, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Pau Barabajoggle, and Mira G. Thanks so much.